Stop for a moment and really listen to this because this message may reach you at exactly the time you need it most. There is a reason these words found you today. Somewhere deep inside, you have been carrying a feeling that never truly left your heart. Maybe you tried to ignore it. Maybe you told yourself it was only in your imagination. But something inside you has always known the truth. What you felt with that person was real, and no amount of time or distance has been able to erase it. Before we go further, if messages like this speak to your heart, take a second to subscribe to the channel Psychotherapy and turn on the notification bell. This space is here for people who believe that real emotions and real connections still matter. And today's message might help you see your own story in a new light. Now, think about that person for a moment. Not just the memory of them, but the feeling you had when they were near you. There was something different about it, something calm, something familiar. It felt as if your life suddenly made sense in a way it never had before. When they looked at you, you did not feel judged or misunderstood. You felt seen, truly seen. They recognized the real you, not the version you show to the world, but the softer, more honest version that very few people ever get to see. That kind of connection does not happen every day. In fact, many people search their whole lives without ever finding it. You did not create that feeling on your own. It happened naturally, almost as if your heart recognized something it had been waiting for. And that is why the separation hurts so deeply. When something so meaningful suddenly disappears, the silence it leaves behind can feel overwhelming. You probably spent many nights lying awake, replaying memories in your mind. You asked yourself where things changed. You searched for the exact moment when the distance began. Some mornings felt strangely empty, even when life around you continued as usual. You went through your days, but something important felt missing. Here is something most people never talk about. When a connection is real, separation does not lead to disappointment. Sometimes it does the opposite. Distance can make the truth clearer. The absence can reveal just how important someone truly was. While you were carrying your own emotions, the other person was going through their own quiet struggle. At first, they may have tried to convince themselves they made the right choice. They may have tried to move forward and fill their life with new distractions, conversations with other people, different routines, different places, but something never felt quite the same. The laughter they shared with others never reached the same depth. The calm they once felt around you never fully returned anywhere else. There was always a small space that remained empty, even when everything on the surface seemed normal. Slowly, and sometimes painfully, they began to understand something they had been avoiding. What they shared with you was not ordinary. It was not something that could easily be replaced. Fear may have guided their decisions before, but fear rarely leads people toward happiness. Little reminders of you started appearing in your everyday life. A familiar song playing somewhere unexpected. A small moment that reminded them of a conversation you once had. Even the way a stranger laughed can suddenly bring your memory back into their thoughts. Every time that happens, the connection they walked away from was not something something meaningful, something greater than something inside them. Something was also not inside you. Stay strong. You tried to convince yourself that letting go was the sensible thing to do. Maybe friends or family told you it was time to move on. Maybe even your own mind tried to protect you by suggesting the same thing. But your heart never fully agreed. You never closed the door completely. Not because you were weak, but because something inside you understood that this story might not be finished yet. Sometimes our hearts recognize the truth long before our minds are ready to accept it. Right now, the person you are thinking about is facing their own moment of honesty. It is not happening with dramatic speeches or grand gestures like you see in movies. It is happening quietly, in private moments when they finally stop running from their own feelings. They have been thinking about what they would say if they reached out to you again. Maybe while driving alone, maybe standing in the shower, maybe during those quiet minutes before falling asleep. In those moments, when defenses fade away, the truth becomes harder to ignore. What stops them is not a lack of love. It never was. The real obstacle is fear. Fear that too much time has passed. Fear that you have already moved on and no longer feel the same. Fear that the opportunity they once had is now gone forever. What they do not know is that part of you has still been listening to that quiet voice inside your heart. The one that never completely gave up on what you shared. And that quiet loyalty is not something to be ashamed of. In fact, it shows a kind of means you recognize something meaningful when it appeared in your life, and you respect it enough. Someone who is told to leave behind a relationship that seemed too difficult to continue. Everyone around her suggested it would be easier to walk away and start over somewhere else. But she looked at the person she loved and said she would continue the journey with them wherever it led. That choice was not made because it was simple. It was made because it was honest. Love that deep is not naive. It is brave. For a long time, you have been carrying that bravery quietly, without applause, without certainty, just a quiet understanding inside your heart that what you felt mattered. And somewhere else, the person you are thinking about is finally admitting something to themselves. The truth sounds something like this inside their mind. They walked away because they were afraid they might lose themselves if they stayed. But leaving did not solve that fear. Instead, it created a new emptiness that they could not ignore. Since then, many moments in their life have reminded them of what they left behind. The realization has not arrived in perfect words. It has come slowly, through reflection and honest self-examination. But the message has become clearer with time. What they had with you was real. Now they are standing at a crossroads inside their own heart. The distance that once felt safe no longer feels comfortable. The silence between you has become heavier than the risk of speaking honestly. And deep inside, you have probably felt that shift already. Sometimes our intuition recognizes emotional changes before we hear the actual words. The truth is this: the force that once tried to separate you was never stronger than the connection itself. It only seemed that way during the most painful moments, when everything felt uncertain and permanent. But time has a way of revealing what truly matters. You held on to the truth of your feelings not because you were dependent on someone else, but because you have the rare ability to recognize authenticity when it enters your life. You refused to pretend something was meaningless when your entire heart knew otherwise. That kind of emotional honesty is rare. And now, the story that once felt unfinished may be moving toward a new chapter. A chapter where two people who have experienced distance and loss understand the value of each other more clearly than before. If this message resonates with your own experience, take a moment and share your thoughts in the comments. Sometimes hearing other people's stories reminds us that we are not alone in what we feel. And if you know someone who might need to hear this message today, share this video with them. You never know whose heart might find comfort in these words. Remember to stay connected with this community by subscribing to Psychotherapy, because conversations about real emotions and real healing continue here every week. And most importantly, remember this: sometimes the end of a chapter is not the end of the story. Sometimes it is simply the moment when everything that seemed lost begins slowly finding its way back.